And now, to address the legal concerns of the community, Praise AM 1310, 95.1 FM presents Legally Speaking. Here are today's hosts.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. This is Nathaniel Lee. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for tuning in each week. I'd like to thank all our people on the internet, Facebook, and the numerous stations within our broadcast range. We have today my superstar panel, attorney Vanita Banks, Chicago, Masters in Tax, cybersecurity expert, and of course the great Milton Grimes, famously represented Rodney King, that led to the evolution of videotaping police misconduct. But before we get started, there's been a lot of things in the news, and we're going to start with DEI program. Our call-in number is 833-653-3529. Now, here's why that's important. We have a relatively short time period in which we've had desegregation efforts in America. Only within the last 50 to 60 years that we have effort. So when the murder of George Floyd by a Minnesota police officer set off a wave of racial unrest across the country in 2020. And after that, corporate America responded swiftly. Everybody saw this horrific crime right before ours. There was videotapes of it. It seemed like about a dozen people took videotape of this heinous murder that frequently would happen with African Americans. Like, for example, in Indianapolis last fall, in 3.5 months, we had 18 African American males shot and killed by police officers. But once this DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion, got started, many of the major corporations in America, colleges and universities, created new DEI positions or expanded teams dedicated to DEI, and the phrase became popular, a buzzword across the business landscape. Many corporations then pledged to hire more people of color. They removed branding perceived to be racist and invested in historically Black colleges and universities. And at the time, this was met with great public support. It was amid a so-called racial reckoning in America that focused on the systemic inequalities in America's society, including the workplace. For example, I attended the University of Georgia Law School, and the University of Georgia Law School always had affirmative action, but affirmative action meant that you were white, wealthy, or white with connection, and you got admitted into a prestigious law school, top 20 law school. Only in the 70s that they changed their focus and they included African Americans. They didn't include whites, but they included African Americans. So in my class of 232 students, there were 7 African Americans. The population in Georgia, probably 30% African American, but about 3% of the folks in law school. So that's the history we deal with America. And now we see many states now are attacking DEI. University of Florida got rid of his whole staff. The NAACP calls for a boycott. And folks, what they should have done is tell the athletes in football and basketball, enter the transfer portal. That will get their attention and cause them to do a quick reversal, because they get a substantial sum of money for TV rights and SEC participation, and they can't afford to lose those marquee athletes. So that's where we start today. I had to get all that out, Attorney Banks and Attorney Grimes, because it didn't bother me, because I've seen a lot of unrest, but I did not see any campus participation when they were taking away the basic rights of African Americans.
You got a lot out, brother, that's for sure. Thank you. Thank you. I started law school in 1970, Nathaniel. And I remember a protest that year. I was president of the African American Law Students, and we shut the school down, Hastings, University of California, Hastings, because they were not giving us enough financial support and tutorial support, as was implied when we accepted admission to that particular law school. And we led a protest joined by other student groups, especially the white females, I'll never forget. And we were able to get the attention of the dean and the university and acquire some of those things that we were saying we were being deprived of. It's sad to see now, today, 50 some years later, that students are not aware of the importance of these, what was the name of the programs, Vanita?
DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah, but it was named something else back then. Leo.
Affirmative action.
Yeah, affirmative action. Damn, that we've gotten complacent, we've gotten too individualized. Maybe we're being too critical. I don't know. But there does seem to be a change in the attitude of some of the affirmative rights that we took risks and change. I went to school with the guys who took the microphone from Hayakawa at San Francisco State in 1968. Jerry Vanita, who's now passed, Benny Stewart, Buzz, and they were like my central committee at Hastings. I mean, thinking about it just brings shivers back. But we had to confront the dean and the school, and we had to demand what we thought was equal rights and support our opportunity to go to this school. So for you to say that we don't have that interest in our well-being now is really disturbing.
Attorney Banks?
Absolutely, Attorney Lee. And we're seeing across the nation a very, very well-funded attack on DEI programs at both, let's just start with universities and colleges across our nation. In fact, Texas is abolishing DEI programs at all state-funded colleges and universities. And there are at least, I counted at least a dozen other state laws that are similarly attacking diversity and inclusion programs in colleges and universities. Texas, the bill is SB 17, which would close all DEI hiring and training offices at public colleges. And in fact, more than 80 faculty members at 2 Texas public universities, they've been fired. And university presidents are being forced to either strip their programs, DEI programs, eliminate those, or face losing state funding altogether. And so, as Milton stated, we really need to, we've made some gains, over the last several years, but we really need to protect those gains because there is a intentional outright effort to erase our history. We see efforts all across this country and actually we've seen the term colorblindness weaponized against us to basically destroy all the gains that have been made over the years. And so it's something that we definitely have to, one, understand that's happening, and two, build coalitions to address these serious challenges that are happening across our nation today. basically stripping out any type of disparate impact analysis from the government to our schools. And in essence, you know, we look at the fact that this nation's wealth is based and was built on the backs and the labor of our slave ancestors. And now that same money is being used to enforce systems of oppression in our nation.
Thank you. Now, we have a bunch of folks that have called in. So, caller, when we admit you, make it short and simple. And we're talking about diversity and inclusion today. There's a lot of things we can talk about. Just don't forget. Okay, Pierre, you have a question? Or Emma, you guys have a question about diversity and inclusion?
Are you there?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Good morning, all. Real quickly to Milton, can you give us a real quick rundown on what Baki meant back in the day and how that all affects what's going on today? Do they still have affirmative action restrictions in California on admissions to law schools and all of that, or did they do away with that? And I'll take it off the air. Thank you.
I'm going to defer to Vanita, who I think kept up with the Baki issue recently. I did not, but as far as I understand, there is no more admission to our universities like it was in the past based on race. Am I right or wrong, Vanita?
Under the Baki decision, it stands for the proposition that you cannot set a specific quota or percentage of minorities in your college admissions process. However, having race be one factor that's included in a whole host of different considerations was legally permissible until this recent affirmative action case involving Harvard University.
Yeah, I kind of lost your thing, but that case that Attorney Banks was talking about is Student for Fair Admission versus Harvard University and University of North Carolina. What that case dealt with, got to remember, this is very important, folks, that you understand what this affirmative action, how important it is. In institutional higher education at the prestigious universities all across the country, the African American that occupied a role of maybe 2% or less. So out of every 100 students in professional schools at these, you have 2 African Americans. 2, not 22, 2%. So what they're saying is that now the 2% apparently is too much. But so the current U.S. Supreme Court determined that having a race-conscious admission program is illegal. So therefore, what we're faced with in our country is that we may see a further decrease in African American getting advanced degrees such as PhDs, law degrees, medical degrees. And the reason this is important, let me stress you why this is so important. The wealth of a nation's people, you could look at the educational level they achieve, it will determine your financial outcome. So in other words, if you had folks in your neighborhood and they all got a PhD, JD, MD, or MBA type degree, then they will be in a certain income bracket versus people who quit after high school or didn't finish high school. There'll be a substantial difference in earning capacity. So when they introduce these legislations or they get rid of affirmative action, that means that there's going to be a greater wealth gap in America. CNN covered this today with Victor Blackwell, and they had a really good story. They were saying that the average wealth in the United States of African America last year was $44,000. The average well, our Caucasian was like 400 some odd thousand. And so by having a decline in these programs, we would see a further regression in earning capacity. So it's very important people understand why this is so important. The pathway to success for us, like Milton, myself, maybe Vanita, won't be available to your children based on the current laws. And that's important. It's not like when we went to law school, we were inferior students. When we went to law school, they simply weren't admit people because of the color of our skin.
Right.
Imhotep, you have a question or comment?
Yes, I do. And hello, everyone. Attorney Banks Firms. Appreciate taking my call. And that's a somber situation. I watched the video, and I'll get my question because I watched the video from the Iowa Department, either was the Legislative Caucus, the Department of Education, that rolled back all their DEIs, and of course Iowa is 90% just about white. University of Iowa, I think, is 2%, has 2% black, in that 2% range, Northern Iowa and all of them. So, and she cited that she wanted a young white gentleman to be able to go somewhere and not and be able to feel comfortable where he's going. How you don't feel comfortable with 90%? I mean, that is astounding. Attorney Grimes, the bombshell report that came out about Alameda County and restricting black and Jewish jurors on all those cases. I'm sure you either heard about it or may have read about it. I read through all that. That's preposterous. I don't understand how they just keep getting around Bastion, but you all would know better than me. And then number two, my mother discussed all that questioning with the Trump's immunity trial. And what got me the most was particularly two questions. I think one from Sotomayor, Justice Sotomayor, excuse me, let me be proper. Justice Sotomayor, when she asked, so if a president ordered a murder of his political rivals or head of state, would that be justified? And the lawyer said yes. I was like flabbergasted. And then it may have been Ketanji Jackson or Barrett that said, okay, so if what's that to stop another country from someone else ordering a hit on you? Would they be justified? And the attorney said maybe yes. I probably read through 30 of those, the question and answers, maybe 40. It was just the most illogical thinking I've ever heard from a lawyer. My mother was saying, I guess that's what he has to do. But I like your opinion on it, Attorney Grimes, the Alameda case, and then that question and answer on that immunity. That was preposterous. And thank you for my call.
I personally I'm not aware of the situation with the jurors and blacks and Jews on the jury in Alameda County, but what is coming to my mind here in this discussion is a conversation I had with a retired Ninth Circuit judge recently. And I was curious as to why he had retired from this distinguished bench of jurists. And he said, I can't take it anymore. I'm saying, we need you still on the bench to take it. He said, no, I can't take the atmosphere that is existing now on the bench where your writing and your opinions are totally disregarded and thrown to the side. There is no power there anymore. So this is going up and affecting people in places that I just had never envisioned. So not only is it at the level of the students and the working level, it's at the higher level where people are becoming disenchanted and feeling powerless in the position that we all have strived to work for. So you're right, Nathaniel, something is happening in this country, and Vanita said there's a well-funded program or plan to affect the advances we've made over these years. So we have to become aware of this a little more.
Yeah. Well,
Seriously.
And again, I mentioned on a prior show that affirmative action was never intended for unqualified people to benefit from being admitted to universities or opportunities to participate in the workforce. It was for historically, socially disadvantaged groups who, as a result of historic discrimination or oppression, didn't have an opportunity to gain access to the door in order to benefit from these opportunities. And so the term affirmative action, again, has been bastardized over the years to suggest something that it never was intended to mean. When we talk about legacy, legacy admittance in universities and colleges, that's not based on equity, right? It's based on privilege. It's based on wealth in many cases. And so we have to be very attuned to what's happening across the nation. And we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about it today, but everybody that's hearing this call, I want you to read, go to project2025.org, and that will lay out what the specific intentions are with respect to this Herculean Goliath effort to essentially turn back all the gains that have been made over the years, evidenced by these attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And as we move forward, there are going to be attacks on Title VII. And again, all of the gains that have been made, there's a outright attempt to really reshape our government and to, again, strip out any disparate impact analysis. And it's based on this false equivalency that's being advocated around what I'm calling a quote new color blindness, right? That we don't see color and color doesn't matter, and basically taking Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s words out of serious context, right? And saying, we want to be colorblind, color doesn't matter, without any reference to or consideration of the power dynamics. This effort is saying that history doesn't matter, that past impediments don't matter, that slavery didn't matter, that systemically racist institutions don't matter, that everybody's on an equal playing field. And then attacks on our history, book banning, all of this, is coming together, and we must be vigilant to come together to address what's happening in America today. When we talk about color blindness is actually very color conscious because it sees color, it just doesn't see the dominant color, right? So when you look at positions in corporate America, 90% or more of those positions are owned by the majority. And so we've got a very serious problem. Again, the effort is very, very well funded. And we need to be awoke, right, to what's going on in our nation right now.
Well said, Vanita. I don't want to duck that gentleman's first question to me, though, about I'm assuming it is the exclusion and not the inclusion of Jews and Blacks on juries. Is that what you're saying this Alameda rule is about or situation is about, sir? That would be in violation of the Constitution. But I'm just not familiar with the situation.
Well, that was a very, very good set of statements that Attorney Banks made. I think our call-in number also is 833-653-3529, 833-653-3529. I see that we have people that are lighting up our issue and our text board, but there's something that's important that you can see how this is spiraling out of control. In Indiana, we have folks running for governor. And Eric Dowling, who's running for governor, he runs a commercial that says Mike Braun, who's also running for governor, who's a state U.S. senator, he supports Black Lives Matter, and Black Lives Matters are cop killers. Nowhere since the movement started did they have a recorded case where Black Lives Matter killed some police officer. We know that because of insurrection, we have police officers die and injured. And so he's running a purely racist campaign that says that Black voters don't matter. And so it's the continuation of this racial reckoning departure that we're seeing. Now we're going to the opposite of the extreme. What we're trying to now saying that we're going to have people running for governor who at night wear their Klan uniform. And the state is diverse. The people in Indianapolis are great people. You know, we get along and race relation is great. But to have these politicians interject their racist views, I think is alarming. And I think that, people need to take a closer look at this. Now, when you get ready to vote, make sure everybody vote, because you got to get these clowns out, because they are apparently saying they don't want our vote. You may not have that problem in LA, Milton. I see that like they have a problem with your local prosecutor there in LA, but here our politics is getting really nasty.
Oh, politics is getting nasty, Nate. They damn near have taken the position that Gascon is gone. Not to try to have a pun, but it's sad because I met this gentleman on several occasions, and I think his heart is in the right place about the injustice of the criminal justice system up to today, and his difficulty with his own deputies in trying to resolve this and change this and make it a fair system, which is a big job. But we have a problem here in LA, Nathaniel. Even though we have a prosecutor in office who expresses humanitarian views, you have his office members fighting against him every day in the courtroom.
It's scary. And so a lot of people don't fully grasp our criminal justice system nor our civil justice system. And the one thing that's been a constant in our justice system, race is an important factor in case after case. When you see the number of police shootings here in Indianapolis, for example, last year, how many African Americans was killed by police officers versus Caucasian? The point is that we see the life of a lot of these young men doesn't mean a lot. They indiscriminately murdered them, and there is no consequence. And so the issue of DEI or diversity, equity, and inclusion is important. I think that this was an opportunity that we felt as a nation is something that was a good thing, that we needed, this racial healing in our country. And the fact that we've decided to go away from it, I think is sad. We see colleges and universities, because they're forced by legislators. It started with the governor down in Florida, who started using the term woke, that it was a bad thing that because when the slaves were trying to escape, it says stay awake or stay woke. Well, now it's a bad thing that you're trying to get out of slavery and oppression and stuff. And it's a liberal type agenda. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. They took what was a message to save lives of African America, now is a bad thing. And I don't get it. They just completely put spin on this. But we have a caller we'll go to real quickly. Caller, you have a question for us today.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Nate, this is Guy calling. First, Attorney Grimes could probably speak to this. With all over the world, we have violence and people coming against each other at each other's throats. Wonder if the famous words of Rodney King could be highlighted more in terms of on the air. His famous words were, "Can we just get along?"
Can't we all just get along?
Yeah, I think we need that in the world.
They're poetic words, and I love the fact that in his heart he was able to speak that and not stick to the script that was given to him. I didn't represent him at the time, but he created that statement in his own mind at the time when he was asked to make a statement. And then it wasn't a naive statement as some people laugh about. But can't we all get along, sir? I think that there is a little naiveness in that we have had wars against each other ever since man has been on this that I know of. And it doesn't seem to be a goal of mankind to get along. It seems to be a goal of mankind to control, rule, and enslave others. I read a book not too long ago, the Papa, forgot the real told the title of it now. Anyway, it's about in 1493, the Pope sent the Dutch and ship out to take all lands on the sea in front of them. And if the inhabitants of those lands didn't bow down to enslavement and subservience to the white man, they were to kill. And if they didn't harvest the gold and the minerals from their lands for the benefit of the Dutch, they were to put them in enslavement and kill them. So history is full of, no, we can't all get along, my brother.
Absolutely. The other point I wanted to ask you distinguished barristers about was, what do you think about the trial in New York of our former president not being able to hush, so to speak, even though the trial is about hush money?
And the name of that book was The Papa Bull. That's the name of the book. I just remember.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Your question was about hush money?
About Donald Trump and the jury trial. The 34 felony counts against the former President Donald J. Trump in Manhattan courtroom that's been playing out for the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched that trial transcript each day, and here's some truism about the trial. Number one, all the witnesses that are testifying are confidence, employees, or personal friends of Donald J. Trump. Number two, they all been subpoenaed, apparently, to testify. Number three, they point to a very sordid affair in one of his key friends, National Enquirer. A person should never buy a National Enquirer after you saw the CEO of the company testify. He admitted that they simply made up stories, made them up to help a political friend. They simply manufacture things, and they sell these magazines apparently through Walmart and Kroger and stores like that. Don't ever buy any more of those magazines again. They're just political propaganda, and they sensationalize things. He admitted that to make money and also to protect political friends.
What magazines are these, Nathaniel? I'm sorry.
National Enquirer.
Okay.
They had a program called Catch and Kill. So any negative story about any person they like, they catch it and they kill the story. They would get exclusive rights to the story, have the person sign the NDA agreement, and the story died. It died. And they paid people thousands of dollars in that process, particularly as related to Donald J. Trump. Now, but the problem that I had is it was a deterioration of the American democracy when I saw how this sort of event occurred. One of the persons I even called Milton Vanita was his personal secretary. And I thought it was just kind of odd that I asked her, has she ever seen Stormy Daniels? She was on the 14th floor, right? And on cross-examination, Milton, the lawyer was saying she could have been a contestant for The Apprentice. I'm thinking, if I'd been a jury, I'd have probably fell out of my chair and said, are you freaking kidding me? So you're going to have a porn star to be a contestant, to work for the corporation, to sell what? You know, in other words, they're making up this defense as they go along, and it's just crazy stuff. And I guess, that if he's not found guilty, it'd be the greatest trick since Houdini escaped from whatever.
Well, going back to the magazine, I remember as a young person and seeing those magazines in the grocery store and places, and it was always the position that over half of the stuff in them was made up. I mean, they have stars and suggested positions or in different places, and it was kind of a laughable magazine. I didn't call it a magazine back then. I thought it was a something between a magazine and a newspaper. But the stories were always looked at as untrue or embellishment about somebody, and you just go on. But they put them.
I agree.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Attorney Grimes. I was thinking the same thing. Growing up, we always saw those National Enquirer magazines, as you're leaving, you're in the in the line cashing out, you'd always see outrageous headlines and stories about, celebrities and others. So you always, chuckled and, understood that these stories, were half-baked and weren't true.
Right. You wouldn't.
I wasn't aware of this catch and kill approach that we're learning about this week. Is he the former owner, David Pecker, of the National Enquirer? And I believe he was given immunity, right?
Yeah.
As well.
I don't know, but I read about him in the paper. But yeah, it was not uncommon to open it up and you see a horse with a human head or something bizarre, that was kind of laughable, and you put it back down. Okay, pay the check and let's go. Yeah.
But as you stated, Attorney Lee, this trial involves 34 criminal counts of falsifying business records, intent to violate federal campaign finance limits, and unlawfully influencing the 2016 presidential campaign, and also to commit tax fraud. And so, of course, we had the opening statements, and the testimony began this week with three of the witnesses, as you stated, including his own personal assistant, as well as Mr. Pecker. And he's very clearly stating that those payments were made for the purposes of influencing, the 2016 presidential campaign. And of course, the defense, the former president's defense, is saying that the payments were made to, and they're always splitting hairs, right? To protect his family, right? So I guess their defense is that he didn't want these affairs, to be known by his wife and family. But what I find is
Well,
interesting about, go ahead, Attorney Grimes.
well, okay, I just interject. Up until recent, there were two states, Oregon and Louisiana, where you only needed a 10-2 for conviction. 10 people said the person is guilty. You didn't need all 12. You didn't need unanimous. But I believe New York is a unanimous jury state. And guys, as ridiculous as you may say some of these allegations are and some of these assertions are by the defense, the prosecution has the burden of convincing 12 people, unanimous. 12 people have to agree that this was a criminal thing he did. And I've seen cases where even in the face of a video that could have been by God showed the actual facts, because of the love and the feeling and the reputation of law enforcement, one or two jurors refused to convict. And so the defense may be aiming at the one or two who could withhold a conviction. I'm sure they are.
It only takes one. You're absolutely right, Attorney Grimes. And interestingly, there are 2 lawyers on the jury, 7 men and 5 women, 2 male lawyers. One's a corporate lawyer from what I've read. The other one is in civil litigation. Other jurors include a wealth manager and an investment banker, interesting, and a security professional. My question to you, Nathaniel and Milton, would you have used your peremptory challenges against the 2 lawyers in this case?
I don't know, Vanita. I top on the jury. I've done some crazy stuff. Death penalty jury. I selected an all-female jury, believe it or not, because I saw we were getting more women on than not. And we ended up with 12 women on the jury, and 3 of them out of the 4 were women for the alternates. And it was under my belief at the time and going forward that women would not give my client the death penalty, even in the face of the fact that he killed 2 people, burglarized them and robbed them, and was bragging about it. And do you know, it was a 7-5 vote on whether or not there were special circumstances, a murder robbery or murder burglary. And they would not agree. And it's not sexism. It was just an intuition of mine to say, mothers bring life into this world. They don't take it away. And sure enough, they did not give him the death penalty. He was guilty of sin, but he didn't have to deal with the death penalty. I say that to say that the makeup of the jury and the background of the jurors is very, 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 very important. And so 2 lawyers on the jury, depending on if they were 2 lawyers who were prosecutors, hell no, I wouldn't keep them on the jury if I was the defense. But if it's 2 lawyers, just 2 lawyers, their background, information on them, I can't say that I would automatically eliminate them, Vanita.
Hey, Vanita, when I've done jury trials, I've always, when lawyers is in the panel, I look at the background, because during jury selection, you could get a lot of information.
Right.
Our trial system, we actually have the name and address of the jurors, so you're able to get a lot of information. In my jury trials, I've had lawyers on several of my civil jury trials, and the only thing is that you know that you have a solid case. Usually with intelligent folks, you're going to win the case. And so I look at their backgrounds and their training, what they post on social media, and I look for clues, because right now it's a social media world. And when we're doing jury selection, there's enough time. We only get about 20 minutes here in Indianapolis to look at. You get about 30 some odd jury, you got 20 minutes, so you have to do it really fast. So you have your staff to look up certain jurors, And if their background checks out, you know, but even if I wanted to get rid of the attorney on the jury, there's something that's very simple. I go through the legal analysis with them. And like if I was trying to convict Trump, say, in American democracy, do you agree that the law in our country is that no person is above the law? And why is that? And would you, in Russia, the president killed his opponent. He died mysteriously in jail. Should that type of conduct happen in America? So a couple questions. You're trying to find out when you're asking the lawyer's question. Remember, there was a lot of lawyers that represented Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And most of them got sanctioned by now. Some look like they're headed to jail. Rudy Giuliani went into bankruptcy and lost his law license. So he did have a large group of lawyers that represented him. So you could, in theory, get some really bad lawyers on the jury. And I understand that.
It doesn't, I guess, Vanita, to say it, because I've done a little work on this area of voir dire. There's a 2-hour video on the trial of Hiroshi, one of the Japanese civilian during World War II, so whether or not he was going to be convicted and executed for war crimes, and he wasn't even in the military. But to go beyond that, the basic bottom line is to judge people not as a group, but by their individualism. So to say I'm not going to take an Asian person on my jury is kind of retarded. Is not sensible or logical or intelligent, because there may be a very liberal person from Asian ethnicity there on this jury. So it's talking to the person and to find out their views on certain issues in your case. And we call it presenting the danger point. Like, I'm concerned in this case about your feelings about homosexuality or this or that, because my grandmother had this feeling, and we discussed that, and we come up with this position. Would you share your position, or can you tell us how you feel about this and that? But it's sort of an open discussion about the issues without judging them or arguing with the juror about it, but giving them the comfort of discussing what their position is about it. It's sort of what, like Nathaniel said, just putting the issue out there, maybe showing your position about it. When I first heard about this, I thought this way. I found out later I may be wrong. How did you feel about it? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, what do you think? You think you feel like that, or you feel like this? You feel like her, or you feel like him? Can you tell us how you feel? So, long story short, just being an attorney on the jury, just being a cop on there, I've learned now that you cannot automatically exclude the person because of what they used to do or do now.
Milton and Nathaniel, you just delivered a master class on the considerations in selecting a jury. Thank you for that.
Okay, now we'll go to one last caller. Caller, you have a question or comment for us today? Caller.
Hi.
You have a question or comment for us today?
Both. I have both. I want.
You have a question or comment for us today? Turn your radio off.
I have both. I wanted to know because.
Turn your radio. Hey, caller, turn your radio off.
I'm sorry.
Just turn the radio off. That's all. Go ahead. You need to now unmute. You're muted now, caller.
I think we lost her.
Did we lose
No, we
her?
didn't lose her. She's muted. Wait a second. Unmute. Okay, caller, can you hear me?
Get back to you about your question and me about the seminar. I'll talk to you later about it.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, go ahead, caller. What's the question quickly? Hello? Okay, we left her. Okay, we're at the end. Any closing comment, Attorney Banks? Attorney Grimes, go ahead, Attorney Banks.
Well, I just wanted to go back to the New York trial for a moment. Three things that resonated with me with respect to David Pecker's testimony. He admitted that he killed stories to assist the former president with respect to his presidential candidacy and not to protect his family. He also admitted, or he was asked a specific question. Did you have issues regarding the legality of the payments? His answer was yes. And in fact, he wanted to make sure that the payments satisfied the campaign finance laws and actually met with an election attorney as well as his own general counsel. And third, he was asked, are you aware that the expenditures were you aware that they were made for the purpose of the election? His answer again was yes. So we'll see what the how the testimony goes next week. But at this point, as you stated, Attorney Lee, at the beginning of the call, that the testimony this week have all been from friends, right? And close associates, including his own personal assistant. This case is, the trial is scheduled for about 7 weeks, so a lot more to follow.
Attorney Grimes, quickly, sir.
We've had to fight against slavery, Jim Crow law, segregation, racism, the Ku Klux Klan, and we've had to fight all the way to demanding equal admission to universities and education, folks. And the fight is not over. Not only do you have to vote, but you have to protest and demand these rights that we have acquired over the years. So please don't go to sleep.
Thank you, everyone. And we thank you, our callers, and we look forward to talking to you once again next week. Thank you, everyone, and have a blessed day.
Okay,
Have
bye-bye.
a great weekend, everyone. Thank you.